At that point in my life, I was 31, 32, trying to figure it out. My kids is getting older, 1 foot going negative, almost giving up on basketball.
Shane the Dribbling Machine Woney, Bronx, New York, age old enough. Today's feature, let's take it back to the essence and naturalness of the game, where true emotion and reaction are expressed, and many of the greatest players ever got their start outside in the streets, the playground. A place that can't be duplicated and sadly has been neglected in recent years for the energy and soul it gave to basketball, where all that mattered was the battle between you, your defender, and the other team. There were no comfortable gyms set at the right temperatures, personal trainers, and cameras everywhere to watch. There was asphalt, a hoop, and a need to compete against whoever was in front of you that day. Streetball is and will always be a special piece of basketball history and growth, not just for the entertainment, but because, as it almost goes extinct in coverage and popularity, it becomes a rare piece of fine art encapsulated in an era long gone. Much like the brand that came along and made it popular, and won. A company that found a hidden gem in sports and competition held in the streets that had yet to be discovered. Streetball was going on long before, but AND1 brought it to the world. One of AND1's pioneers responsible for bringing the eyes and passionate craze that would create opportunity for players brushed aside as a parody of the sport that never made it to the NBA was Shane Woney, aka the Dribbling Machine. For me, Shane was the epitome of AND1 and streetball growing up. He was there from the beginning, getting his first call on a payphone to participate in the AND1 streetball phenomenon. He was from where it all started, and he was one of its best players for years to come, even though past his prime years and likely past his chance of using that platform to go to the NBA. Of course, anything can happen, and if you made a list of streetball players that had the talent to play at the highest level, Shane would definitely be on there. He was the glue to AND1 basketball and perfect representation of what AND1 was trying to do back in the early 2000s. Take streetball stars off the playground and on tour across the world, showcasing a different brand of basketball that entertainment hadn't seen before in that light. No, Shane didn't end up in the NBA, but for him, he wasn't necessarily trying to. He just wanted to feed his kids, collect as much gear as possible, and be able to entertain playing the sport he loved and only skill that came natural to him. Did he have a dream of playing in the league? Every hooper does. 3 reasons that dream didn't come true for the Dribbling Machine. Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. Shane Woney was a 6-foot point guard from the Bronx, New York that developed his love for basketball going to the playground like most kids back in the day, sitting and watching the talent, mesmerized by the way they captured the attention of the audience. He remembers one of the first players he became a fan of and took things from his game and incorporated in his own style was a guy called Chris Boogie, a round-the-way hooper with a drunken master from the karate movie's style. Shane took bits of his style and later added dancing with the ball as a way to burn the clock and entertain the fans. As his intrigue grew more and more, he began to spend all his time at different playgrounds across the city and less time academically. He was only eligible for 1 year of high school basketball at Clinton High before playing 2 years at Westchester Community College. Early on, he and all his basketball friends had dreams to play in the NBA. He and one in particular, Eric Mobley, made a pact that whichever one of them made it first would take care of the other. Mobley did play in the league and for a while honored his promise. Shane, on the other hand, starred in community college but went back to the streets after, where by then he was a father and struggling to find a way to feed his family other than selling drugs. Stunt number 1, the education key. Back in the days of Shane Woney, it seems one of the consensus early reasons so many talented basketball players that were good enough to but never made it far in basketball was because they forgot the importance of education, especially at that time. doesn't mean you had to sit there and be the most studious, but it was tied and entangled all through the journey of basketball, which in the 90s, you needed it to do things like get into a Division I school recruiting you by being eligible and earning a score on the SAT/ACT good enough to help receive admission and sign a scholarship. Players like Shane had to make a trade-off because in order to be elite on any level and pretty much in anything, you had to do said thing much more than the other person. So time is needed. Woney and many like him spend their time on basketball, staying out there even when he missed class and sometimes an entire day of school. It got to the point his teachers, when his mom would ask about Shane's progress, would reply, "Who?" as if the student that was supposed to be in her class she wasn't even on name basis with. So Shane would have to settle for junior college after losing his offers because he wasn't eligible for a Division I scholarship. He'd have a son before leaving high school, so that, along with his grades, led him to community college and a quick return home to sell crack and hopefully make $100 a day so his kid could eat. Going that route instead of staying on top of his books and signing a letter of intent to one of the big name schools after him initially placed him behind an 8-ball he almost didn't come from behind. Stunt number 2, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. In 91-92, Shane became the team leader in scoring, assists, and steals for Westchester Community College's sophomore year. After the year was done, he returned home to help take care of his son. With potential to make something of himself still on his side, the local drug dealers would support his figuring it out process until one day they told him, "We can't just keep giving you money. You're 31 now, you gotta start earning it." That day, he began selling crack in small amounts in hopes to make enough a day to keep food on the table. He had spent years living this way, as there had yet to be a way for guys without formal education and hadn't gone the traditional way along the basketball journey to eat off basketball other than the NBA or going overseas. His career wasn't good enough to go overseas and definitely not going to interest the NBA, so for a time, that was the life. Out the blue, Main Event, who founded the idea of &1 bringing street ballers together and not just him, calls Shane with some news. A payphone in one hand and the other down his pockets holding onto his crack, he listens as Main explains that he has some guys that want to pay them to just go around the city, playing other guys 5-on-5, and they would get free sneakers and gear. Shane immediately became interested, and it all started from that day. He threw away the last of his pack and jumped on what he thought was his last opportunity. Stunt number 3, just at the wrong time. Lastly, what I think stopped Shane the Dribbling Machine from making the NBA or even having the chance really was because by the time Main Event gave him that call, he was 34 years old already and past his best playing self, where he claims he was even dunking and fast as any guard in the league. &1 blew up around 2001-2002 and became a phenomenon all over the world. I couldn't believe when I saw Hot Sauce and Shane the Dribbling Machine pull up to my high school gym in the Bahamas to play, and from there off to Tokyo and places like Sydney, Australia. But by then, Shane was leaning more on the entertainment side of streetball to hold his place on the squad, and did it just as well, as he was the vocal leader and glue that kept tempers and egos from jeopardizing his only way to eat at that point. He says his first check from &1 was for $7,000 for the year and $14,000 the next. Crumbs that many say &1 robbed those guys and got rich off the culture, as they went right back to the hood. But for Shane, it was a great opportunity. He could feed his family by playing basketball and traveling the world, not to mention lifelong fame that allows him to have a successful foundation in his city for developing kids for the future in basketball now. He was a part of the &1 mixtape tour from day one until it faded in 2008, but at his age coming in, never got to use that as a chance to make the league. All in all, basketball still brought Shane peace because to him it saved his life. He could have easily went the negative way and crash out selling drugs in the hood or even begin using them himself. Those tours gave he and so many opportunity now more than ever to capitalize off their once fame and use it to influence in this new influencer age, which Shane is doing just fine at. Salute, much respect, certainly a streetball legend. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.